Rain hammered the city streets as if the sky itself was trying to wash away the world's pain. Streetlights flickered in the mist, casting long, trembling shadows over the deserted alleyways. It was the kind of night that felt alive with secrets, where every puddle mirrored hidden sorrows, and every whisper of wind carried an untold story. For Michael, a man whose life had already been shaped by loss and hardship, it was just another evening of solitude, but fate had other plans. Michael's life had not been kind. A single father for the past 3 years, he had learned to navigate the world with one hand holding on to responsibility and the other grasping hope, however fragile. His little boy, Tommy, was his anchor, his reason to rise every morning even when the weight of loneliness threatened to drown him. But this night, as he trudged home through the drenched streets, a distant, desperate sound cut through the rhythm of the rain. It was faint at first, a soft whimper, almost like a whisper struggling to survive. Michael paused, his coat pulled tightly around him, ears straining. The sound grew, a mixture of panic, pain, and helplessness. His heart tightened, instinct overriding fatigue. He followed the sound through the empty streets, guided by a faint, almost imperceptible moan. And there, under the cold, relentless rain, he saw her. A young girl, no older than 12, was huddled in a wheelchair that had seen better days. Mud splashed her tiny frame, her clothes soaked through, clinging to her fragile body. Her eyes were wide with fear and confusion, darting around as if she expected someone, or something, to appear from the shadows and make her disappear forever. Michael's chest tightened. This was not just any child. This was a child abandoned, left alone to face the cruelty of the world. He approached cautiously, his voice low and calm, trying not to startle her. "Hey there. It's okay. You're safe now." The words sounded strange even to him, as if he were whispering into a nightmare he couldn't wake from. The girl flinched, tears mingling with the rain, but there was no escaping the truth. She had nowhere else to go. Michael's mind raced. Why was she out here? Who could do such a thing? Leave a child in a wheelchair, defenseless, in the pouring rain? Questions collided in his head, but the answer didn't matter right now. What mattered was this moment, this child, and the silent promise forming in his heart that she would not face the storm alone. He knelt beside her, careful to keep his movements gentle, hands steady despite the adrenaline pumping through his veins. "My name's Michael. What's yours?" he asked. The girl hesitated, shivering violently, and finally whispered, "Lila." Her voice was barely audible, fragile like a bird's wing. Michael's heart ached. Lila. Such a beautiful name for someone so small, so frightened, and yet so full of silent strength. "Lila, it's okay," he said again, as if saying it enough times could make it real. He scanned the street, looking for anyone who might have left her there, anyone responsible for this cruelty, but the city remained indifferent, cloaked in rain and shadows. He realized something chilling. She had been left alone intentionally, discarded by the world like a broken toy. Without hesitation, Michael lifted the wheelchair, struggling against the weight and the rain that slicked his hands. He could feel Lila trembling, not just from the cold, but from a lifetime of fear compressed into one desperate moment. Carrying her to safety became his singular focus, the city's noise fading into a distant hum. Every step was heavy, yet filled with resolve. He had faced struggles before, had carried burdens alone, but never had a responsibility like this, never had a soul so small and vulnerable placed entirely in his hands. As they moved through the storm, memories of his own past flooded him. Memories of his late wife, of the empty rooms in their modest apartment, of the nights he cried silently while Tommy slept, fearful that life might never grant him joy again. Yet here, amidst the chaos and cold, he felt a strange surge of purpose. Lila's fragile form pressed against him, a stark reminder of human vulnerability and human resilience. Finally, they reached the small sanctuary of his apartment. The warmth hit like a gentle embrace, melting some of the ice that had formed in Michael's chest over the years. He dried Lila with blankets, offering comfort without rushing, letting her know, silently, that she was safe. He could see the relief in her eyes, a tentative flicker of trust beginning to form. But then, something unexpected happened. Lila whispered a name. A name that made Michael freeze, his hands tightening around the towel. "Mom?" she said, her voice trembling. It wasn't just a word, it was a key, a trigger, a connection to a past Michael couldn't yet understand. And in that instant, he realized that the story of this abandoned girl was far more complicated than he had imagined. Someone had left her here, but why? And who could have been cruel, or desperate, enough to do so? Michael's mind raced as he pondered the possibilities, the rain still pattering against the window like an unrelenting question. He knew one thing with certainty: tonight had changed everything. He was no longer just a single dad struggling to keep his life together. He was a protector, a guardian, a witness to a truth that would shake his understanding of the world, and perhaps even his own past. And as he looked down at Lila, shivering but slowly calming, he felt the stirrings of a promise that he would uncover the truth, that he would shield her from harm, and that he would never let the cruelty of the world touch her again. The storm outside was fierce, but inside, something stronger was growing: hope. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the city felt heavy, weighed down by the remnants of the storm. Puddles reflected the pale sunlight, and the streets were slick with grime and memories. Michael had prepared a simple breakfast, carefully helping Lila into a chair at the table. Her small hands trembled as she reached for a piece of toast, eyes still wide and haunted, scanning every shadow as if danger might return. Michael watched her quietly, trying to read the story her silence hid. She hadn't spoken much since last night, only soft whimpers or hesitant nods. But he had learned long ago that silence often carried truths louder than words. He decided to give her time, to let trust grow at its own fragile pace. Tommy, curious but cautious, peeked around the corner of the kitchen. "Who's this, Dad?" he asked. His voice was gentle, almost reverent, as if he understood the gravity of the moment. "This is Lila," Michael said softly, placing a protective hand on his son's shoulder. "She needs a little help right now." Tommy's eyes widened, and for the first time, Michael noticed the spark of empathy in his son's gaze. It was rare in children so young to see such instinctive compassion, and it warmed him in a way the rain never could. Breakfast passed in a quiet rhythm. Michael noticed Lila's fingers tracing the edge of the table, almost hypnotically, as if she were grounding herself in the small act of eating. He wondered about her past, the circumstances that had led to her being abandoned in the rain. Who had left her there? Was it neglect? Malice? Or a desperate act of survival? He didn't yet know, but one thing was certain: she needed him now, and he would not fail her. After breakfast, Michael decided to take a small walk with her. The streets, though wet and glistening, seemed less menacing in daylight. He helped her into her wheelchair, adjusting it carefully, making sure it moved smoothly over the damp pavement. Lila's eyes followed every movement, a flicker of curiosity blending with lingering fear. Michael spoke softly, trying to ease her tension. "See, it's not so scary out here. The world can be gentle too." But life rarely follows simple reassurances. As they turned a corner, a figure emerged from the alleyway, a woman, soaked to the bone, clutching a small satchel. Her eyes were wild, scanning frantically, and when she saw Lila, they filled with a mix of relief and panic. "Lila! Thank God, Lila!" she cried, rushing forward. Michael instinctively stepped protectively in front of the girl. The woman froze, recognizing Michael for the first time. "Who are you?" she demanded, breathless, eyes darting between them. "Why do you have her?" Michael tightened his grip on the wheelchair handles, instinctively shielding Lila. "She was abandoned," he said firmly. "I found her in the rain. She's safe here. Now tell me why she was left alone." The woman's expression crumbled. Tears streamed down her face as she knelt beside Lila. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. "I'm her aunt. I promised her parents I'd look after her, but I couldn't. I thought someone else would help her." Her voice cracked, and Michael saw a mixture of guilt, desperation, and fear etched into every line of her face. Lila looked up at Michael, eyes wide, searching. Michael felt a pang of protectiveness surge through him. This child had already endured so much. He had to tread carefully, balancing the fragile trust they had built against the sudden intrusion of this woman from her past. He knelt to meet Lila's gaze. "Do you know her?" he asked softly. Lila hesitated, then shook her head. "No," she whispered, voice barely audible. "I don't know her." Michael's heart sank. Whatever the truth was, Lila's past was a maze of confusion, and right now, she saw only strangers where she needed safety. He glanced back at the woman. "Then step back," he said firmly, though his tone held no malice. "She doesn't need anyone she doesn't trust." "Not yet." The woman nodded, tears glistening on her cheeks. "I understand," she said quietly, taking a step back. I thought I could help. I didn't know what else to do." Michael could feel the honesty in her voice, but he also knew that actions mattered more than words. And so, he made a decision, one that weighed heavily on him even as it seemed natural. Lila's immediate safety and trust were paramount. He wheeled Lila a few steps forward, letting her take a small measure of control over the pace. "It's okay," he murmured. "We're safe now. No one's going to hurt you." Her small hands tightened on the armrests, and for the first time since he found her, Michael noticed a slight exhale, a small sign of relief. The rest of the day passed in careful observation. Michael made sure Lila ate, drank, and rested. He shared stories of his own childhood, of Tommy's first steps, and of the ordinary struggles that sometimes carry hidden miracles. He could see the tentative curiosity building in her, a slow thawing of the frozen fear inside her. And yet, in the back of his mind, the question remained: who left her? And what truth would come to light when the full story revealed itself? By evening, Michael felt a mixture of exhaustion and determination. He knew he couldn't ignore the mystery of Lila's abandonment, but he also knew that confronting it too soon might undo the fragile bond they were forming. Instead, he resolved to create a space where she could feel safe, loved, and understood, a sanctuary in which the storm outside could no longer reach her. And as he watched her finally drift into sleep that night, a blanket tucked around her small frame, Michael understood something profound. This was not just a rescue, it was a beginning. The rain had washed the streets, but the real cleansing had started inside him. A renewed sense of purpose, of connection, of responsibility not just to his own son, but to this fragile soul who had stumbled into his life at the precise moment he was meant to meet her. The next morning dawned clear but crisp, a stark contrast to the storm that had brought Lila into Michael's life. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, highlighting the gentle rise and fall of her chest as she slept. Michael watched quietly, a mixture of awe and resolve settling in his chest. The past 2 days had changed everything. He had found more than a child in need of help. He had discovered a purpose that transcended his own struggles, a bond that neither time nor circumstance could break. When Lila finally opened her eyes, she looked around cautiously, as if testing the boundaries of safety. Michael smiled softly. "Good morning, Lila," he said. "Sleep well." She nodded slowly, still clinging to the small blanket around her shoulders. Tommy peeked in from the doorway, a shy grin on his face. "Morning," he whispered. The exchange was small but significant. Trust was building, fragile but real, like sunlight through a fogged window. Michael knew he couldn't put off the truth forever. Lila's abandonment was a puzzle, and puzzles demand answers. He gently suggested they take a short walk, a chance to feel the world again, and maybe, just maybe, uncover a clue about her past. The streets, now glistening under the early sun, felt less hostile, almost inviting. Each step Lila took in her wheelchair was tentative, yet brave, and Michael marveled at her resilience. As they moved, a small figure appeared ahead, a man, tall, with an anxious expression etched across his face. He froze when he saw Lila and Michael approaching. Michael instinctively positioned himself slightly in front of her, a protective barrier shaped by instinct and concern. "Can I help you?" he asked calmly. The man's voice quivered. "Lila, is that you?" My daughter." Michael's heart skipped. The man's eyes were wide with desperation, but there was also a hint of fear, as though the truth he sought might be more than he could bear. Lila's gaze shifted between Michael and the man. Recognition flickered in her eyes, but so did caution. Michael kneeled beside her. "Do you know him?" he asked gently. Lila shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered. "I don't know him." Michael's protective instincts surged. He studied the man carefully, noting the subtle signs of sincerity, hesitation in speech, trembling hands, the raw emotion that cannot be faked. Still, Lila's trust had to come first. "We need to be careful," he said softly. "You can't just claim her. She needs to feel safe." The man swallowed hard. "I am her father," he said, voice barely audible. "I thought she was lost. I thought she—" He broke off, choking on words, grief and guilt etched deep into his features. Michael's mind raced, trying to reconcile this revelation with the story Lila had silently carried for days. "Sit with us," Michael suggested, cautious but open. "Talk. Explain." The man nodded, tears streaming freely now, and took a tentative step closer. "I made a mistake," he admitted. "I was young, struggling. I couldn't care for her. I thought I could fix things later, but I lost her." His voice cracked, a raw confession that weighed on the quiet morning. Lila looked at him, wide-eyed, her small frame stiff with conflicting emotions: fear, longing, confusion. Michael felt the tension tighten like a coiled spring, but he stayed grounded, offering silent support. This was not a moment to act rashly, it was a moment to witness, to guide, to protect the fragile heart in front of him. For a long while, no one spoke. Then Lila, her voice barely a whisper, said, "Why didn't you come sooner?" The question hung in the air, heavy and sharp, a dagger of honesty piercing the veil of excuses. The father's shoulders slumped, his guilt palpable. "I was afraid," he admitted. "Afraid of not being enough. Afraid that I'd fail you again." Michael watched carefully, noting every flicker of emotion, every micro-expression that revealed the truth. He realized that this story, his story now intertwined with hers, was not just about rescue. It was about healing, accountability, and the courage to face pain with honesty. Finally, Lila's father knelt to meet her gaze at eye level, tears mingling with the morning light. "I will do everything I can to make this right," he promised. "I can't change the past, but I will not leave you again." Lila's small hands trembled, then slowly, tentatively, reached out to him. Michael felt a warmth surge inside, a mixture of relief and pride. She was learning to trust, to forgive, to hope again. That evening, as the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the city, Michael sat quietly with Tommy and Lila. The apartment felt alive in a new way, filled with laughter that had not existed before. The storm had passed, leaving behind not just puddles on the streets, but ripples of transformation in 3 lives forever changed. Michael understood something profound. Heroism is not always about grand gestures. Sometimes, it's about being present, offering protection, and showing someone, especially a child, that they are worthy of love and safety. The rain had forced him into that role, and he had embraced it with all the strength he had, discovering depths of courage and compassion he had not known existed. In the weeks that followed, Lila began to settle into a rhythm of trust. Her relationship with her father slowly rebuilt, fragile but promising, guided by the stability and care Michael continued to provide. Tommy, too, grew closer to Lila, their bond forming like sunlight breaking through clouds. And Michael? He found in their laughter and shared struggles a reaffirmation of his own strength, a reminder that even in the darkest storms, humanity, love, and resilience could shine through. As the city moved on, indifferent to the dramas unfolding in its alleyways and apartments, Michael knew the truth. Some storms are not meant to destroy, but to reveal who we really are. And on that rainy night, when he had found Lila abandoned and shivering, he had not only saved a child, he had discovered the true measure of courage, compassion, and hope. And as he watched Lila wheel herself across the sunlit room, a small smile playing on her lips, Michael allowed himself a rare moment of quiet pride. The storm outside was long gone, but the light it revealed inside them all was everlasting. A light born of rescue, trust, and the extraordinary strength of the human heart.